Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Where are they? They've been rumored for such a long time. The Nintendo Switch is now officially the longest running Nintendo console ever before receiving a successor, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond was finally shown off during the most recent Nintendo Direct, and still nothing has been said about Metroid Primes 2 and 3. With Switch 2 around the corner, could it be the case that the window of time for Metroid Prime 2 and 3 to come out is closing quickly, and we may never actually see these games come out for Switch 1? Or is there hope? Well, that's what I would like to talk more about today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. For today's sponsored message, we are going to be talking about the multi-platform galactic fantasy RPG Honkai Star Rail and its version 2.3 update. This is a game that was awarded Best Game of the Year back in 2023 for Google Play and the App Store, as well as the Best Mobile Game at Game Awards 2023. Honkai Star Rail comes from HoYoverse, the makers of Genshin Impact. This is a free cross-platform RPG. You can play it on PC, PlayStation 5, and mobile, with shared data between all platforms, so you can play the same game, same file on your phone, on your PC, or your PS5. And I myself have started playing this game recently, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a beautiful, cel-shaded fantasy space RPG with some really cool and flashy combat mechanics. With some of the footage you may be seeing here, you may notice I'm dealing with a pretty high level enemy, and it had a little bit of a challenge there. I had to get a better wrap on the combat, take advantage of some of the mechanics, and power up my characters. And while I'm still fairly early on into the game, I find myself getting hooked, and there's a lot to enjoy right from the get-go for free. This is a very popular game with many charming characters, over 40 playable characters to enjoy in the rich semi-open world experience. And while there's already a pretty good game there, with the version 2.3 update, players are going to be invited to the Radiant Feldspar to participate in negotiations between the IPC and the family discussing the future of Penokony. But beyond some of the story stuff, there will also be some new characters, like Firefly SAM, essentially a girl that can jump into this mech and blitz with her fire-type destruction. She is a member of the Stellaron Hunters. And then there's also Jade, who has this crazy whip that brings out a giant snake to destroy everything. She is a pawnbroker and credit specialist from the IPC Strategic Investment Department. The characters overall in this game have really flashy specials, cool abilities you can do throughout the overworld, and some fun personalities, especially if you're into all the fun anime tropes. This latest update is also going to be including some new events like the Simulated Universe Season and the Arcade, which brings with it the first PvP event in Honkai Star Rail, Origami Bird Clash. New cavern relics and planar ornaments will become available, so you should go ahead and check out this free-to-play game. There is a free 10-pull waiting, log in for 7 days to receive the 10 Star Rail special passes, and use them to pull Firefly SAM and Jade. Make sure to check out the link in the description below to download this game and experience these new characters, as well as using the redemption code below to obtain 50 Stellar Jade. So firstly, many people have been expecting a variety of different GameCube remakes and remasters to come to the Nintendo Switch. They've been rumored for such a long time, so many of them from so many different credible sources like Liam Roberts, Nate Drake, Emily Rogers, and they've been coming. We've been getting things like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Metroid Prime Remastered, Super Mario Sunshine in 3D All-Stars. And with the variety of remakes and remasters that continue to come, especially as the Switch 2 is around the corner, and considering how Nintendo handled the transition with the last 2 years of 3DS as Switch came out, we likely should be expecting a lot more remakes and remasters from Nintendo's older consoles like the 3DS, like the Nintendo Wii, and the Nintendo GameCube. So even without considering rumors, it's reasonable to expect more GameCube remakes and remasters within the last few years of Nintendo Switch. Even if Switch 2 does come out in March of 2025, as a lot of us are currently thinking, based off how Nintendo handled the end of 3DS and the kind of momentum we still are seeing for Switch 1, we should probably still be expecting games to be coming to Nintendo Switch, at least the remakes and remaster kinds, for the next couple years or so. So even though Switch 2 may be coming out pretty soon, I don't think the opportunity is closing for different GameCube remasters to be coming to the console. So for those holding out hope for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Metroid Primes 2 and 3 and more, there's still a few years left, really. Now, that all said, Metroid Prime Trilogy has been rumored for a long time, for years, and ever since Metroid Prime 4 was announced, many have thought that it just kind of makes sense to bring these games to the console. And of course, more recently, back in summer of 2022, Jeff Grubb did tell us about a big boy remaster for Metroid Prime 1, and they were totally correct. We got one of the most ambitious remasters ever in Metroid Prime Remastered, and it's fantastic. Now, when asked about Metroid Primes 2 and 3, Jeff Grubb did say this back in summer of 2022. I don't know about soon. I think Nintendo just fills in the space between now and Prime 4 with them, however long that is. And interestingly, if we go back to the summer of last year, Metroid Prime 2, according to Jeff Grubb, should be coming relatively soonish, which is, yes, a relative term, and now we're almost a year removed from that rumor and still nothing has happened. But when it comes to Jeff Grubb, he has provided a variety of legitimate leaks over the years, but timing has always been tricky. So do I believe the rumors? Yes, I do think Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are going to come to Nintendo Switch still, even though we saw Metroid Prime 4 during the Direct and they said nothing. I just think this means that the plans for Prime 2 and 3 are for them to be coming out shortly before the release of Prime 4, very similar to Pikmin 1 and 2. Which, yes, does mean that I'm not expecting big boy remasters for 2 and 3. I do think that the way Nintendo is handling things now, it is lending itself more towards them not having that much of a makeover, which perhaps is a little disappointing, but I still think they're going to come, and perhaps they come in a way that is inviting. If it is a bundle like Pikmin 1 and 2, we can save some money. These games will still look better than their original releases, and they'll still probably get quality of life updates that will allow them to play like Prime 1 Remastered. So I'm thinking we'll see them bundled and announced shortly before the release of Prime 4. But when might that be happening? Well, all we know about Prime 4 right now is it's coming out in the year 2025. And I do believe it's going to be a cross-gen title. I think it's coming out for Switch 1 and Switch 2 at the same time. But I don't think it's going to be a launch title. I've had hope that it would be a launch title, but at this point I think it's most likely not going to be a day one title. I think they're going to save something else to be the day one title. And I think this might actually make even more sense. So say Prime 4 comes out just a few months after the release of Switch 2. Let's assume Switch 2 comes out March of 2025 as reports have been indicating, and Prime 4 launches sometime between May and July of next year. This would be an ideal window because this would put Prime 4 in that summer period of time where a lot of students would be available, and if a lot of the theories are true about Prime 4 having some sort of significant online multiplayer, this could be a way to help push the series, and Prime 4 could take on the role similar to Splatoon 2 back in 2017 when it released during a similar time. But by doing something like this, being a few months removed from the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, at this point there will then be more opportunities to start having presentations, a Nintendo Direct, let's say, that's focused on not just Switch 2, but both Switch 1 and Switch 2, where they can make their dual hybrid announcements. In other words, they could tell us more about Metroid Prime 4, a cross-gen title, but also games that will be coming to both consoles, like Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Perhaps they will be shadow dropping these games on the Nintendo eShop, and regardless of a Switch 1 or Switch 2, you will be able to download these games shortly before the release of Prime 4. I think this makes the most sense. Now, because Prime 2 and 3 are bigger games than Pikmin 1 and 2, they're not as digestible. I would like to think that they would space them out a little bit more than just a couple weeks before the release of Prime 4. Maybe we're talking more like a couple months, but ultimately it'll basically be the same difference. I think Nintendo would want to do something like this because it'll provide more opportunities to market the entire Metroid series. After Nintendo closed the Nintendo Direct with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond as their big final reveal, they then started pushing both Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime Remastered throughout social media, while also putting these games on sale in most regions on the eShop. Nintendo is taking the opportunity to push Metroid when they can, so every time Metroid Prime 4 is going to be shown off, it's going to stir a lot of conversation, and Nintendo is going to use this opportunity to push the Metroid series a little bit more. And so as we get even closer to the release of Prime 4, once we're starting to see even more of this game, they're probably going to use that opportunity to push Prime 2 and 3, which will in turn get more people excited for Prime 4, but have more people buy these games, and then also consider other Metroid games like Prime 1 Remastered and also Metroid Dread. This is how I currently envision their plan. But let's consider an alternative scenario. Recently, there's been some talk that there is some sort of GameCube controller being put together, and there was even a GameCube trademark a few months ago. What if this new GameCube controller and this GameCube trademark have to do with finally GameCube coming to Nintendo Switch Online? If something like this is actually happening, be it exclusively for Switch 2 or for Switch 2 and Switch 1, then a whole slew of GameCube games would be coming, right? And this could even include Metroid Primes 2 and 3, and they could still use them to market Metroid Prime 4. They could announce the releases of these to GameCube NSO shortly before the release of Prime 4 in a similar fashion to what we discussed earlier. The only difference is that it would be available through NSO as opposed to buying them separately, and in terms of improvements, it would be about the same. Because the way NSO currently works, it takes these old Nintendo games and upscales them to 1080p, so they are improved visually somewhat. You still have the option to customize controls how you see fit, even though the way it's done now, it's not very elegant, so I do hope they improve on that over the next few months or for Switch 2. But also, all the multiplayer games have an online mode. So for Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, I've been wanting them to offer online for the multiplayer, and if they do it through NSO, then, well, that's pretty much guaranteed to happen. If they just handle Metroid Prime 2 and 3 like they handled Pikmin 1 and 2 before Pikmin 4, then they might not do that. So either way, I'll take it. It would essentially be the same difference. At least for me, who has Nintendo Switch Online. For those that don't want Nintendo Switch Online, then maybe you would prefer it in the Pikmin 1 and 2 way, or maybe you would prefer it in that way because you would rather own your games. And thinking on it, I do think that still makes the most sense that we'll see Prime 2 and 3 come out separately. I do think eventually they would have a physical release, because these would be collector's items. People will be excited about this, and actual game releases as opposed to a Nintendo Switch Online update are a bigger deal. But what do you think? Do you agree with me that all they're doing right now is just saving these games to be coming out close to release of Prime 4, perhaps a few weeks or a few months? Or do they have a different plan in mind for Primes 2 and 3? Tell me what that might be in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.